I've worked the night shift at St. Vincent Memorial Hospital for almost 8 months. People who have never worked in a hospital at night usually imagine that it's peaceful. It isn't. During the day, the building is packed with people. Doctors rushing between rooms. Nurses pushing medication carts. Families sitting in waiting rooms. Ambulances pulling into the emergency entrance every few minutes. But after 2 a.m., something changes. The hallways become almost completely empty. The fluorescent lights hum overhead. Most patient rooms are dark, and every little sound seems louder than it should. A distant elevator bell. A monitor beeping somewhere behind a closed door. The squeak of a nurse's shoes on the polished floor. After a while, you start noticing sounds that shouldn't be there. At least, that's what I thought. My name is Daniel Carter, and on the night this happened, I was working security. It was a Thursday night in late October. Nothing about the shift felt unusual at first. I'd already made 3 rounds through the emergency department, checked the main entrance, walked through the parking garage, and done the usual inspection of the 2nd and 3rd floors. Everything was normal. Too normal, actually. The kind of quiet that makes you look at the clock every few minutes just to make sure it hasn't stopped. At around 2:15 a.m., I went back into the security office and sat down in front of the monitors. I remember taking the lid off my coffee and realizing it had gone completely cold. I was about to throw it away when my radio made a noise. Grrr. I looked down. The radio was sitting beside my keyboard. I hadn't touched it. I picked it up. Security. Nothing. I waited a few seconds. Then I pressed the transmit button. Security to whoever called. Go ahead. Static. I was about to put it down when I heard a woman's voice. Very faint. Almost like she was speaking from the other side of a wall. Room 317. I frowned. Say again. The voice didn't respond. I checked the radio display. No channel problem. No interference warning. Everything looked normal. I tried again. Security to whoever is transmitting. Identify yourself. This time, the answer came immediately. She's awake. I stared at the radio. For some reason, I didn't like the way she said it. Not because the words were strange, because she sounded scared. Who's awake? Nothing. I waited. Can you tell me which room you're in? Still nothing. Then the radio crackled one last time, and the woman whispered, 317. The transmission ended. I looked at the security monitor, then at the clock. 2:17 a.m. I don't know why I remember that detail so clearly. Maybe because, at that moment, I still had no idea how important that number was going to become. I opened the hospital's current floor plan on the computer. 3rd floor, room 316, room 318. I looked again. There was number 317. There hadn't been a 317 for years. I knew that much because I'd been given the same warning during my first week on the job. There was an old section of the 3rd floor that had been closed before I started working there. Nobody was supposed to go near it. Nobody ever explained why. I was about to call the night supervisor when one of the CCTV monitors flickered. Camera 3E. I leaned forward. The screen went black for a second. Then the picture came back. But what I saw wasn't the 3rd floor corridor. At least, shouldn't have been. The hallway on the screen looked older. The walls were yellow instead of white. The ceiling lights were the old fluorescent fixtures I'd seen in some of the hospital's archived photographs. And at the very end of the corridor, there was a door. I could barely read the number, but I knew what it said. 317. I stopped breathing. The camera slowly moved toward the door. I hadn't touched the controls. I watched as the door opened by itself. Just a few inches, then a little more. There was a hospital bed inside. Someone was lying on it. A woman. She was facing away from the camera. I reached for the volume control. Nothing. The room was completely silent. Then the woman moved. Very slowly, she lifted her head, and without turning her body, she looked directly toward the camera. The screen suddenly went black. At that exact moment, my radio came alive again. I almost dropped it. A woman's voice whispered through the static. This time, I recognized it. I knew that voice. I'd heard it every morning for almost 10 years. I'd heard it when I was sick, when I was angry, when I couldn't sleep, when she whispered goodnight beside me. It was my wife's voice, Emily. My wife had been dead for 3 years, and somehow, at 2:17 in the morning, her voice came through my security radio. Daniel. There was a long pause. Then she whispered, "You shouldn't have come back." I didn't answer her. Couldn't. I just sat there with the radio pressed against my ear, listening to the static. Then the connection went dead. I looked at the clock. 2:18 a.m. For several seconds, I kept staring at the numbers. I was trying to convince myself that I'd imagined the voice. Grief can do strange things to your mind, especially when you're tired, especially when you're alone, and especially when you've spent 3 years trying not to think about the person you lost. I put the radio down. Then I picked it up again. Emily? Nothing. I felt stupid saying her name out loud. Emily, if that's you. I stopped. What was I expecting? An answer? A ghost? Some explanation that would suddenly make everything make sense? The radio remained silent. I finally stood up. I decided to check the 3rd floor. Not because I believed there was actually a room 317. I wanted to prove there wasn't. The elevator took almost 20 seconds to reach the 3rd floor. Those 20 seconds felt much longer than they should have. When the doors opened, the corridor was empty. The lights were on. The vending machine at the far end was humming. Everything looked completely normal. I walked toward rooms 316 and 318. Room 316 was empty. The door was closed. I checked the small glass panel. Dark room. No patient. I continued walking. Then I reached the wall between 316 and 318. There was nothing there. Just a plain section of painted wall. I ran my fingers across it. Solid. Cold. I actually laughed to myself. "See," I whispered. Nothing. I turned around. That's when I heard it. Knock. I stopped. I slowly turned back toward the wall. Nothing. I waited. Then, knock. This time it was louder. 3 seconds passed. Knock. I stepped closer. My heart was beating harder now. I placed my ear against the wall. At first, I heard nothing. Then I heard something very faint. A machine. A medical monitor. Beep. Pause. Beep. Pause. Beep. My stomach tightened. There shouldn't have been anything behind that wall. I stepped away. Then the sound stopped. Complete silence. I reached for my radio. Security to 3rd floor. I didn't know why I said it. Maybe because saying something made the situation feel less real. Does anyone know if maintenance is working on this floor? No answer. Then another voice came through. A man's voice this time. One of the hospital's night nurses. Daniel. Yeah. Where are you? 3rd floor. There was a pause. Then he said, "Come downstairs." Something in his voice made me look toward the wall again. Why? Another pause. Because I just got a call from the 3rd floor. From who? He didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "Room 317. I felt the cold spread through my chest. That's impossible. I know. His voice became quieter. That's why I'm telling you to come downstairs. I looked at the wall. The number 317 wasn't there. But something had changed. There was a thin vertical line in the paint, like the outline of a door. I hadn't noticed it before. I walked closer. The line continued from the floor, all the way to the ceiling. I reached out. My fingers touched the paint. Felt wet. I pulled my hand back. There was something dark on my fingertips. Not paint. It smelled like iron. Blood. I stared at my hand. Then, someone knocked from the other side. 3 times. Knock. 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 I stepped backward, and a woman's voice came through the wall. Very softly. Daniel. I closed my eyes. I knew that voice. Again. Emily. Then she whispered, "Please don't let them put me back in here." I opened my eyes. The outline of the door was gone. The wall was completely normal again. And on the floor in front of me, there was a hospital wristband. I picked it up. The plastic was old and yellowed. The printed letters were almost faded away, but I could still read the name. Emily Carter. I stood there holding my dead wife's hospital wristband, and for the first time in 3 years, I started wondering if Emily had ever actually died in the first place. I didn't go back to the security office. I went straight to the nurse's station. Sarah was working that night. She'd been at St. Vincent for almost 12 years, and she was one of the few people I'd met there who seemed to know every strange story the hospital had ever collected. She was checking patient charts when I walked up. "Sarah," she looked at me. "What's wrong?" I put the wristband on the counter. She stared at it. For a few seconds, she didn't say anything. Then her face changed. "Where did you get that?" "Third floor." Her eyes moved back to the wristband. "Room 317? I nodded. Sarah slowly put down the chart in her hand. "Daniel, tell me what you know." She looked around the empty station before lowering her voice. "You need to throw that away." "I'm not throwing it away." "Then give it to me." "No." She stared at me. "Why?" "Because that's my wife's name." Sarah went completely still. I watched her face carefully. She wasn't confused. She wasn't surprised. She looked afraid. "You know her." It wasn't a question. Sarah swallowed. "I've seen that name before." "Where?" She hesitated. Then she stood up. "Come with me." She took me into the small staff room behind the nurse's station. She locked the door. Then she opened an old filing cabinet. I watched her search through several folders. Finally, she pulled out a thin brown file. There was no hospital logo on it. No barcode. No modern patient number. Just a handwritten label. 317. Sarah placed it on the table. "I've never shown this to anyone." I opened it. The first page was an old admission form. The paper had turned yellow. The date at the top was 3 years old. My heart started pounding. October 14th. I knew that date. It was the day Emily disappeared. The form said, "Patient Emily Carter." I looked at Sarah. "What is this?" She didn't answer. I turned the page. There were notes from different nurses. Most of them were difficult to read, but one sentence had been underlined several times. "Patient repeatedly claims someone is standing behind the curtain." I turned another page. "Patient refuses medication after 2 a.m. Another. "Patient says the room is not the same after midnight." Another. My hands started shaking. Then I found the final note. It was written in red ink. "Patient heard calling her husband from inside the room." I stopped reading. "Husband?" Sarah nodded. "That was me." "I know." I looked up. "How do you know?" She didn't answer. Instead, she reached into the file and pulled out a photograph. It was an old photograph of room 317. I stared at it. The room looked exactly like the one I'd seen on the CCTV. Old walls, old equipment, old hospital bed. But there was something else. Someone was standing beside the bed. Emily. She was looking directly at the camera. And behind her, there was another person. A woman. Tall. Her face was hidden by long black hair. I felt my stomach drop. "Who's that?" Sarah took the photograph from my hand. "I don't know." "Then why is she standing in the room?" Sarah looked at me. "Because she wasn't supposed to be there." I didn't understand. "What does that mean?" Sarah sat down. Her voice became quieter. "Room 317 was closed before you started working here." "I know." "No." She shook her head. "You don't know why." I waited. Sarah looked at the locked door behind me. Then she said, 3 years ago, your wife wasn't the only patient who disappeared." My chest tightened. "What?" "There were 2 patients that night." "Who was the other one?" Sarah looked at the photograph again. "I don't know." "Nobody does." I stared at her. "Then how do you know there were 2? She pointed at the final page. I looked down. There was a handwritten note. Only one sentence. "One patient left the room. The other one never came out." I looked at Sarah. "Which one was Emily?" Sarah didn't answer. And somehow, that silence scared me more than anything she'd said so far. Because somewhere inside that old hospital, there was a room that officially didn't exist. A patient who had supposedly died 3 years ago. And a second patient whose name had been completely erased from every record. Then Sarah whispered, "Daniel, you need to understand something." I looked at her. "What's that?" She pointed toward the clock on the wall. It was almost 2:17 a.m. Her face had gone pale. "Room 317 doesn't call people," she swallowed. "It calls them back." At that exact moment, the hospital lights went out. The lights went out for only a few seconds. But in those few seconds, I heard someone breathing beside me. Not Sarah, someone else. Close enough that I could feel warm air against my ear. Then the emergency lights came on. Sarah was standing across the room. I was alone beside the filing cabinet. "Did you hear that?" I asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she grabbed my wrist. "We need to go." "Where?" "The security archive." We left the staff room and hurried down the corridor. The hospital had returned to normal. Lights were on. Monitors were beeping. Nurses were walking between rooms. But something felt different. Everyone seemed quieter, as if the entire building had just experienced the same thing, and nobody wanted to talk about it. Sarah took me to the basement. The old security archive was behind a locked metal door. Most of the hospital's old CCTV footage had been transferred to digital storage years ago, but some of the really old recordings were still kept on tapes. Sarah unlocked the door. Inside were hundreds of boxes. She walked directly toward one shelf. "I've looked at this footage before," she said. "Why?" "Because I wanted to know what happened to the patients." She pulled down a box. The label read, "October 14th, 3rd floor." My stomach tightened. "That's the night Emily disappeared." Sarah nodded. We found an old monitor and inserted the tape. The screen flickered. Then the footage appeared. The timestamp read, 11:42 p.m., October 14th. The 3rd floor corridor appeared. Everything looked normal. Nurses walking around. Doctors entering rooms. Patients being moved. Sarah fast-forwarded. 12:30. 1 o'clock. 1:30. Then 2:06 a.m. A nurse pushed a hospital bed toward the end of the corridor. There was a woman lying on it. Even though the footage was grainy, I recognized her. "Emily." I stood up. "Stop." Sarah paused the video. Emily was lying on the bed. Her eyes were open. She looked terrified. A nurse stood beside her. Another person was walking behind them. A man. His face was impossible to see. Sarah looked at me. "Do you know him?" "No." She pressed play. The group stopped outside a door. The camera angle showed the number clearly. 317. The nurse opened the door. They pushed Emily inside. Then the door closed. Sarah fast-forwarded. Nothing happened for several minutes. Then, 2:17 a.m. The image distorted. The hallway lights flickered. And something appeared at the far end of the corridor. A woman, standing completely still. Sarah stopped the tape. "Who's that?" She shook her head. "I don't know." "Zoom in." "I can't." "Try." She adjusted the controls. The image became clearer. The woman was standing directly outside room 317. Her face was turned toward the camera. Long dark hair covered most of it. She wasn't wearing a hospital gown. She was wearing an old-fashioned white dress. I stared at the screen. "Who is she?" Sarah didn't answer. I looked at the timestamp. 2:17 and 31 seconds a.m. Then something happened. The woman raised her hand and pointed directly toward the camera. Sarah immediately stopped the tape. "Don't." I looked at her. "Why?" "Because that's where it happens." "What happens?" She didn't respond. I started the tape again. The image returned. The woman was gone. The hallway was empty. Room 317's door was still closed. Then, someone walked out. I leaned toward the screen. It was Emily. She stepped into the corridor. But she wasn't on the hospital bed anymore. She was standing, walking, completely normally. She looked toward the camera. Then, she smiled. I felt something inside me collapse. Because I remembered that night. I remembered getting the call. I remembered being told Emily had died. I remembered seeing her body. I remembered touching her hand. Cold. Still. Dead. But the footage showed her walking out of room 317 at 2:18 a.m. Sarah looked at me. Keep watching. Emily walked toward the elevator, then stopped. She slowly turned around and looked directly toward room 317. Her expression changed. She looked terrified again. The door behind her opened. Nobody was standing there, but Emily suddenly stepped backward, like something was pulling her. She disappeared into the room. The door slammed shut. The timestamp changed. 2:19 a.m. Then the entire corridor went dark. Sarah paused the tape. Neither of us spoke. I stared at the frozen image. Then I noticed something in the corner. A second figure, standing behind the glass of room 318. A little girl. She was watching the door. I pointed at the screen. Who is that? Sarah leaned closer. Her face went completely white. Daniel. What? Room 318 was empty that night. I looked at her. She whispered. There was no patient in there. Before I could say anything, the monitor made a sharp clicking sound. The frozen image changed. The tape was no longer paused. It had started playing by itself. The timestamp jumped backward. 2:17 a.m. The hallway appeared again. But this time, I wasn't watching the original footage. I was watching something else. The camera angle had changed. It was looking from inside room 317. And standing beside the hospital bed was Emily. She was staring directly at the camera. Her lips moved. No sound came from the speakers. Sarah increased the volume. Nothing. Then Emily spoke, very slowly, and this time, I could hear every word. Daniel. She looked terrified. If you're watching this. Her eyes moved toward something behind the camera. Then she whispered, I'm not the one you should be looking for. The screen suddenly went black. A second later, the security archive door behind us locked itself. And from somewhere outside, we heard 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. The knocking stopped. Sarah and I stood completely still. Neither of us wanted to be the first person to speak. The archive room suddenly felt much smaller than it had a few minutes earlier. I looked at the metal door. Nothing moved beneath it. No shadow, no footsteps, just silence. I whispered, Who's outside? Sarah immediately shook her head. Don't. Why? Because if something answers. She stopped. I understood what she meant. We waited another minute before Sarah finally unlocked the door. The corridor outside was empty. There wasn't a single person there. But the temperature felt different. Cold. Much colder than it should have been. Sarah closed the door behind us. Let's get out of here. I followed her. But before we reached the elevator, I stopped. Sarah. She turned. What? Go back. Her face tightened. Why? The tape. What about it? Emily said I'm looking for the wrong person. Sarah stared at me. Daniel, whatever is happening here, we don't know enough to. Then let's find out. I walked back toward the archive. She didn't follow immediately. After a few seconds, I heard her footsteps behind me. We watched the tape again. This time, I paid attention to everything. The hallway, the nurses, the doors, the shadows, every detail. When the footage reached 2:17 a.m., I paused it. Emily was standing inside room 317. Her face was turned toward the camera. Behind her was the hospital bed, and beside the bed, something was standing. I hadn't noticed it before. Person, very tall, almost completely hidden in the darkness. That's her, Sarah whispered. I looked at her. You know who that is? No, you just said that's her. Sarah shook her head. I mean, she pointed at the screen. The woman from the corridor. I zoomed in. The figure was wearing the same old-fashioned white dress. Long black hair, pale hands, but her face was hidden. I increased the brightness. For 1 second, I saw her face. Then the image distorted. The screen filled with static. Sarah stepped away. Turn it off. I didn't. The static disappeared, and the footage changed. The camera was now inside room 317. The woman in the white dress was standing beside Emily. Emily was crying. The woman leaned toward her. Her mouth moved. Then Emily suddenly looked toward the camera. Her lips formed two words. "Help me." The footage ended. The screen went black. I sat there staring at it. Then Sarah said something that made no sense. "That wasn't recorded 3 years ago." I looked at her. "What?" She pointed at the bottom corner of the screen. There was a timestamp, October 14 to 2:17 a.m., but underneath it was the current year. I checked the date on my phone. It was October 14th. My stomach dropped. The footage wasn't from 3 years ago. It was happening tonight. We ran upstairs. The third floor was empty. Every light was working. Nothing looked unusual. Then we heard the elevator behind us. Ding. The doors opened. Nobody stepped out. Sarah grabbed my arm. "Don't go near it." But I could see something inside the elevator. A hospital bed. An old one. The kind I'd only seen in archived photographs. And lying on it was a woman. I couldn't see her face. Her body was covered by a white sheet. Sarah whispered, "Daniel." The elevator doors began closing. I stepped forward. The doors stopped. The woman on the bed slowly moved her hand. Her fingers curled around the edge of the sheet. Then she pulled it down. I saw her face. My heart stopped. It was Emily. She looked exactly the way she had 3 years earlier. Same hair, same face, same small scar beneath her left eye. Even the little silver necklace I had given her on our 5th anniversary was around her neck. I whispered, "Emily?" Her eyes opened. She looked directly at me and smiled. "Daniel." My legs almost gave out. I stepped into the elevator. Sarah grabbed me. "Don't." Pulled away. "That's my wife." "No." Sarah's voice cracked. "That's not your wife." Emily tilted her head. She looked at Sarah, then back at me. "Daniel." Her voice sounded exactly like Emily. "Come here." I took one step toward her, then another. Sarah shouted, "Daniel, look at her hands." I stopped. Emily's hands were resting on the white sheet. They looked normal, until I noticed her fingers. There were too many, 6 on each hand. I stepped backward. Emily's smile disappeared. For the first time, her face looked angry. Sarah pulled me out of the elevator. The doors slammed shut, and just before they closed completely, Emily whispered, "You promised you'd come back for me." The elevator descended. We stood there in silence. Then the display above the elevator changed. 3, 2, 1, B. Sarah stared at it. "What does B mean?" I didn't answer, because I already knew. There was no basement floor listed on the hospital's public elevator. But St. Vincent had one. An old basement, a part of the hospital that had been sealed decades ago. And according to the security maps, the original access to room 317 was down there. Sarah looked at me. "We're not going down there." I stared at the elevator doors. Then I said, "I think we already did." The elevator bell rang again. Ding. The doors opened. Nobody was inside, except for a hospital wristband lying on the floor. I picked it up. This time, the name wasn't Emily. It was mine. Patient. Daniel Carter. And underneath my name was a date. Admission, October 15th. Tomorrow. I kept staring at the wristband. Patient. Daniel Carter. Admission, October 15th. Tomorrow. I turned it over, hoping there would be some explanation printed on the back. There wasn't. Just a small barcode. I looked at Sarah. "Tell me this is some kind of mistake." She didn't answer. "Sarah, I've never seen that before." "Then why is my name on it?" She looked toward the elevator. "I don't know." The doors were still open. The display still showed B. I stepped closer. Sarah grabbed my arm. "Don't. I need to know where that elevator went." "You already know." "No, I don't." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she whispered, "The basement." We didn't take the elevator. Sarah led me through a maintenance corridor near the stairwell. There was an old metal staircase that went down to the lower levels. The door had a warning sign on it. Authorized personnel only. Sarah unlocked it. The smell hit me immediately. Damp concrete. Old dust. Something metallic. We went down one flight, then another. The hospital sounds disappeared behind us. No monitors, no footsteps, no voices, just the sound of our breathing. At the bottom was a narrow hallway. The lights were old fluorescent tubes. Some were completely dead. Others flickered every few seconds. Sarah stopped. "Stay close to me." We walked slowly. There were doors on both sides. Most were locked. Some had faded labels. Archives, storage, maintenance. Then we reached a door with no label. Sarah unlocked it. Inside was a small records room. Old filing cabinets filled every wall. I looked at her. "What is this?" "Hospital archives." "Why are they down here?" "Because some records were never transferred to the new system." She switched on the lights. Dust floated through the air. I started opening drawers. Patient records. Hundreds of them. Some from the 1960s. Some from the 70s. Then I found a section marked Room 317. I pulled out the first file. The patient's name was Margaret Hill. Admission date 1961. I opened it. There was almost nothing inside. Only a few medical notes. Then a final page. Patient deceased. I opened another. Thomas Reed. Another. Linda Foster. Another. Michael Grant. Every few years. Another patient. Every file ended the same way. Deceased. But there was something strange. All of them had been admitted to room 317. And all of them had disappeared from the hospital records after their deaths. No obituary. No family information. Nothing. I looked at Sarah. "How many?" She shook her head. "I don't know." I kept searching. Then I found a file dated 1999. The patient's name was crossed out. I opened it. The first page was almost completely blackened. Someone had deliberately destroyed the information. But one sentence remained. Patient claimed that the woman in the room was not a patient. I turned the page. Another note. Patient attempted to leave at 2:17 a.m. Another. Patient heard a voice calling from behind the wall. I stopped. Those were the same things I'd experienced. I looked at Sarah. "This has happened before." She nodded. "Many times." "Then why doesn't anyone know?" "Because nobody talks about it." "Why?" She stared at the files. "Because the people who do." She paused. "Usually disappear." A cold feeling moved through me. I opened another drawer. This one was almost empty. There was only one file inside. The label made my heart stop. Emily Carter. Pulled it out. The file was thicker than the others. Much thicker. I opened it. The first page was her admission record. But there was something wrong. The date wasn't 3 years ago. It was October 14th, 1957. I stared at it. "Sarah." She leaned over. Her face went pale. "That's impossible." I turned the page. There was a photograph. An old black and white photograph. A young woman stood beside a hospital bed. She looked exactly like Emily. Same face. Same eyes. Same small scar beneath her left eye. I felt dizzy. "That's her." Sarah didn't respond. I turned the photograph over. There was handwriting on the back. Emily Carter, room 317, October 14th, 1957. I stared at the words. Emily hadn't been born until 1989. I knew that. I had seen her birth certificate. I had met her parents. I had spent 10 years with her. Yet there was a photograph of her, taken more than 30 years before she was born. I dropped it onto the table. "What's happening?" Sarah didn't answer. Instead, she opened the back of the file. There was one final document, a handwritten note. The ink was faded, but I could read it. "The patient is not the problem." Below that was another sentence. "Something is using her face." I looked at Sarah. "What does that mean?" She slowly shook her head. "I think." She swallowed. "I think the woman we've been seeing isn't Emily." I remembered the elevator, Emily's face, her voice, the 6 fingers. I felt sick. "Then what is it?" Sarah looked at the photograph again. I don't know. Suddenly, one of the filing cabinets behind us slammed shut. Bang. We both turned. The room was empty. Then another cabinet opened. Slowly, by itself, a file slid forward, fell onto the floor. I walked over. Sarah whispered, "Don't touch it." But I already had. The file was brand new. The paper was clean. No dust, no stains, no handwriting, just a printed name. Daniel Carter. I opened it. The first page contained my full name, my date of birth, my address, my employee number, everything. I turned the page. There was only one sentence. Patient has begun hearing the voice. I turned another page. Patient has seen the room. Another. Patient has made contact with the patient. Then the final page. It was dated tomorrow. At the bottom was a single line. Patient will enter room 317 at 2:17 a.m. I stared at it. Then Sarah's radio suddenly crackled. A woman's voice came through. Emily. But this time, she wasn't speaking to me. She was speaking to Sarah. He's already inside. Sarah slowly looked at me. And behind us, the archive room door clicked shut. The archive room door wouldn't open. Sarah tried the handle first. Nothing. She pulled harder. Still nothing. Daniel, help me. I grabbed the handle beside her. We pulled together. The door didn't move. It was locked from the outside. Except, there was no lock on the outside. Sarah stepped back. That's not possible. I looked at the file still lying open on the table. Patient will enter room 317 at 2:17 a.m. I checked my phone. 2:09 a.m. We had 8 minutes. Sarah. She looked at me. We need to get out of here before 2:17. She nodded. We tried the door again. Nothing. Then the lights flickered. Once. Twice. The third time they went completely dark. Sarah grabbed my arm. Daniel. I could hear her breathing. Then we heard something else. Footsteps. Slow. Coming from the hallway outside. Step. Pause. Step. Pause. Step. The footsteps stopped directly outside the door. Neither of us moved. A woman's voice came through the metal. Daniel. I closed my eyes. Emily. Again. Daniel. Her voice sounded different this time. Almost like she was crying. Please open the door. Sarah whispered. Don't answer. The handle moved. Slowly. Someone was trying to open it from the other side. I stepped backward. Then the voice changed. It wasn't Emily anymore. It was my mother's voice. My mother had been dead for 11 years. Danny. I felt my entire body go cold. Sarah looked at me. Don't listen. The voice continued. It's cold out here. I couldn't move. Then my mother's voice became my father's. Then Sarah's. Then mine. All coming from the other side of the door. Finally, it became Emily again. You promised you'd come back. The handle stopped moving. Silence. I looked at my phone. 2:13 a.m. For minutes. Then Sarah pointed toward the back wall. There was another door. I'd never noticed it before. It was small, metal, almost completely hidden behind the filing cabinets. Sarah rushed toward it. Maybe it leads to another corridor. We moved the cabinet together. Behind it was a narrow doorway. Sarah opened it. A staircase descended into darkness. I looked down. Where does that go? She shook her head. I don't know. We're going. We stepped inside. The door closed behind us. The staircase seemed much longer than it should have been. We went down. One flight, then another, then another. The air became colder. The smell of disinfectant grew stronger. Eventually, we reached a hallway. I looked around. My stomach dropped. I recognized it. The yellow walls, the old fluorescent lights, the faded green floor. It was the same corridor I'd seen on the CCTV. The corridor outside room 317. Sarah stopped beside me. No! At the end of the hallway was the door. 317. I checked my phone. 2:16 a.m. Sarah grabbed my hand. We need to leave. But the staircase behind us was gone. There was only a wall. No door. No exit. Then the hospital lights flickered. Once, twice, and every door along the corridor opened at exactly the same time. Click, click, click. I heard voices coming from the rooms. Patients crying. Nurses whispering. Someone calling for help. Someone laughing. Then I heard Emily. She was standing somewhere behind me. Daniel. I slowly turned around. She was at the far end of the corridor, wearing the same white hospital gown I'd seen in the old footage. She looked exactly like my wife. No strange eyes, no twisted hands, nothing abnormal, just Emily. She smiled. Daniel. I wanted to run toward her. Part of me didn't care what Sarah had said. Part of me didn't care what I'd seen. It was my wife. Or at least, it looked like her. Emily raised one hand. Come here. I took a step. Sarah grabbed my shoulder. Don't. Emily looked at Sarah. Her smile disappeared. You don't belong here. Sarah went pale. Then Emily looked back at me. Daniel. Her voice became softer. She lied to you. I looked at Sarah. Emily continued. I'm the one who's been protecting you. Sarah shook her head. Don't listen to her. Emily's expression changed. For the first time, I saw something behind her eyes. Fear. Real fear. She looked over her shoulder. Something was standing behind her. A tall figure. The woman in the white dress. Emily whispered, It's coming. The figure stepped forward. Emily backed away. Daniel, listen to me. The lights flickered. 2:17 a.m. Every door in the corridor slammed shut. Emily screamed. The woman behind her moved. Not walking. Gliding. Emily turned and ran toward us. I reached for her, but Sarah pulled me backward. Don't touch her. Emily stopped. She looked at me. Tears were running down her face. Daniel. Then she whispered something I'd never heard before. Something that made me understand why she had been afraid. I'm not the patient. The woman in white appeared directly behind her. Emily looked at me one last time. I'm the reason it's still trapped. Then the lights went out. And when they came back, Emily was gone. The corridor was empty. Sarah was standing beside me. And room 317's door was wide open. Inside was a hospital bed. And someone was lying on it. Sarah whispered, Don't go inside. But from the room, I heard my own voice. Daniel. Come see what happened to Emily. I didn't move. The voice coming from room 317 sounded exactly like mine. Not similar. Not close. Exactly mine. Same tone. Same breathing. Even the slight hesitation I had whenever I spoke when I was nervous. Sarah stood beside me, staring through the open doorway. Daniel. I heard it. She nodded. That's not you. I already knew that. We stayed in the corridor for several seconds. Then something inside the room moved. A metallic scraping sound, like someone dragging a chair across the floor. I took one step toward the doorway. Sarah grabbed my arm. Don't go in. What if Emily is in there? Daniel, listen to me. She turned toward me. Whatever is inside that room wants you to believe she's there. But she was just here. I know. Then where did she go? Sarah didn't answer. I looked through the doorway again. The room was dark. There was only one hospital bed in the center, and someone was sitting on it. I could barely see the silhouette. Then the person slowly raised its head. Daniel. My own voice again. Come inside. Sarah pulled me backward. No. The figure stood. It stepped toward the doorway. The light from the corridor touched its face. It was me. I was looking at myself. Same face. Same clothes. Same scar above my eyebrow. The other Daniel smiled. Sarah screamed. We ran. We didn't stop until we reached the end of the corridor. Behind us, we could hear footsteps. Our footsteps. 2 sets. Then 3. Then 4. I didn't look back. Sarah suddenly pulled me through a doorway. We entered an old storage room. She shut the door and locked it. We stood there in darkness. The footsteps stopped outside. Silence. Then, knock. Covered my mouth. Knock. Sarah closed her eyes. Then a voice came through the door. My voice. Sarah. She didn't respond. "It's Daniel." She looked at me. I shook my head. The voice continued, "Open the door." Then another voice joined it. "Emily, please." Sarah's face changed. She looked like she was about to cry. "Don't listen." The voices became louder. My voice, Emily's voice, then voices of people I didn't recognize, all calling Sarah's name. Finally, everything went silent. We waited. A minute passed, then another. Sarah slowly unlocked the door. The corridor was empty. We returned to the security office just before sunrise. Neither of us spoke about what happened. We simply sat there, watching the monitors. At 5:42 a.m., the first day shift nurses began arriving. The hospital slowly returned to normal. People came through the main entrance. Doctors walked into the emergency department. Coffee machines started running. It looked like an ordinary morning. I almost convinced myself that everything had been a nightmare. Then Sarah looked at one of the monitors. "Daniel." I turned. She pointed at camera 3E. The third floor corridor. Room 316. Room 318. There was number 317. Everything looked normal. Then the camera flickered. For less than a second, a door appeared between 316 and 318. Room 317. And someone was standing in front of it. Emily. She was staring directly at the camera. Then she raised her hand. Not waving, pointing. Behind her, the door was slowly opening. I increased the volume. A faint sound came through the monitor. Emily was whispering, "Don't let her out." The screen went black. I looked at Sarah. "What does she mean?" Sarah stared at the monitor. "I think I know." "What?" She hesitated. Then she said, "Room 317 isn't keeping something inside." I frowned. "Then what is it doing?" Sarah looked at me. Her voice was barely audible. "It's keeping something from getting out." Before I could respond, the security office door opened. A nurse stood there. She looked confused. "Daniel?" "Yeah." She looked at me. "Why are you sitting here?" I didn't understand. "What do you mean?" She pointed toward the clock. "It's almost 6. I looked at the clock. 5:58 a.m. Then she said, "You've been missing for 3 hours." I stared at her. "What?" She shook her head. "You left the security office at 2:20. Sarah looked at me. "That's impossible." The nurse frowned. "I saw you leave." I stood up. "Where did I go?" She pointed toward the elevator. "3rd floor." My stomach tightened. "I was here." "No." She shook her head. "You weren't." Then she looked at Sarah. "And you weren't here either." The nurse walked away. Sarah and I remained completely silent. Neither of us knew what to say. Then my radio crackled. I slowly picked it up. A woman's voice whispered, "Daniel." I closed my eyes. It was Emily. "You need to remember what happened at 2:17. I swallowed. "What happened?" There was a long silence. Then Emily said, "You opened the door." The radio went dead. I looked at Sarah. "What door?" She didn't answer, because she was staring at the security monitor. Camera 3E was showing the 3rd floor again. And this time, room 317's door was open. Something was standing inside. Something tall. Something wearing a white dress. And slowly, it stepped into the hallway. The figure stood completely still in the middle of the corridor. Even through the grainy CCTV footage, I could tell it was a woman. Long dark hair, white dress, pale skin. Her face was turned away from the camera. Sarah leaned closer to the monitor. "That's her. The woman from the tape?" She nodded. "The one in the photograph." I stared at the screen. The woman slowly turned her head. Not toward the camera, toward the wall, as if she was listening to something on the other side. Then she raised one hand and placed it against the wall where room 317 should have been. The monitor suddenly went black. I stepped away from the desk. "We need to find the original records." Sarah looked at me. "Why?" "Because Emily said she was protecting us. And if she's telling the truth, then that thing has been trapped there for a long time." Sarah was quiet. I continued, We need to know what happened in 1957. We went back to the basement after the day shift staff arrived. This time, we didn't tell anyone where we were going. Sarah locked the archive room behind us. We searched for anything connected to room 317. Old construction records, patient reports, maintenance logs, anything. After nearly an hour, Sarah found something. A large black folder. There was no patient name on it. Only a date. 1957. She opened it. Inside was an old newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Local hospital patient missing after midnight incident." I read the article. A young woman named Eleanor Vance had been admitted to St. Vincent Hospital after a serious illness. She had been placed in room 317. According to the article, Eleanor began behaving strangely after several nights. She claimed that another woman was living inside the room. Doctors assumed she was hallucinating. Then, one night at exactly 2:17 a.m., Eleanor disappeared. The room was locked from the inside. No windows were open. Nobody else was found inside. I looked at Sarah. What happened to Eleanor? She turned the page. There was another article. This one was dated 2 weeks later. The headline made my stomach tighten. Second patient disappears from room 317. Another woman. Different name. Same room. Same time. 2:17 a.m. Sarah whispered, "It's been happening for decades." I kept reading. Every few years, someone disappeared. Always from room 317. Always around 2:17 a.m. And in almost every case, someone reported hearing a familiar voice afterward. A dead relative. A dead friend. Someone they trusted. Someone they would follow. I looked at Sarah. "It doesn't kill them." She looked confused. "What?" "It doesn't just kill them." I pointed at the records. "It makes them follow it." Sarah slowly understood. "The voices." I nodded. "It uses people they trust." We searched through more files. Then we found Emily's. 3 years ago, her medical records, her admission, her treatment, her disappearance. But something was different. Emily's file had an additional page. It had been added after her death. The handwriting was different from the doctor's notes. Only one sentence was written on it. "The entity has learned his voice." I felt my stomach drop. "His?" Sarah looked at me. Maybe it wasn't talking about Emily. I turned the page. Another sentence. "Next target. Husband." Couldn't breathe. Sarah took the paper from my hand. "Daniel." I looked at her. "I think it chose you 3 years ago." "What do you mean?" "Maybe Emily wasn't the target." I stared at her. "Then why did she die?" Sarah looked down. "Maybe she stopped it." We continued searching. Eventually, we found an old handwritten report from 1957. It was written by the hospital's first-night supervisor. The handwriting was barely readable, but one sentence stood out. "The woman does not appear in mirrors." I looked at Sarah. "What woman?" She turned the page. "She appears only when someone is alone." Another page. "She speaks using the voice of someone the victim trusts." Another. "She cannot leave room 317 unless the victim willingly opens the door." I stopped. "That's why it keeps calling people." Sarah nodded. "And that's why Emily said not to let her out." I looked at the final page. There was one last note. "If the entity succeeds, the room becomes empty. The victim becomes the new patient." I stared at those words. Then I remembered the hospital wristband. Patient. Daniel Carter. Admission. October 15th. Tomorrow. Except, it wasn't tomorrow anymore. It was already October 15th. I checked my phone. 12:41 a.m. Sarah saw the time. Her face changed. "Daniel!" "What?" She pointed toward the archive door. There was something underneath it. A shadow. Someone was standing outside. We didn't move. The shadow remained still. Then, a woman's voice came through the door. Emily's voice. "Daniel!" I closed my eyes. Sarah whispered, "Don't answer." The voice came again. "Daniel, it's me." Then she said something that made me open my eyes. "I'm outside." I looked at the shadow beneath the door. Sarah grabbed my arm. "Don't." The voice became quieter. "Please open the door." I stared at the shadow. Then I noticed something. The shadow had no feet. It was floating above the floor. I stepped backward. The voice changed. Emily disappeared. My mother's voice replaced it. Then my father's. Then Sarah's. Then my own. "Daniel, open the door." I looked at Sarah. She was crying silently. Then the voice whispered, "You already did once." The lights went out, and when they came back, the archive door was open. Nobody was outside, but on the floor, there was another hospital wristband. This one had no name, only a room number, 317, and beneath it, written in red ink, "One patient must leave." We didn't leave the archive room immediately. For several seconds, neither of us moved. The empty wristband was still lying on the floor between us. 317. "One patient must leave." I picked it up. The plastic felt warm, almost like someone had been wearing it moments earlier. Sarah watched me carefully. "Put it down." I looked at her. "Why?" "Because every time you touch something connected to that room, something happens." I wanted to argue, but she was right. I placed the wristband back on the floor. Then I noticed something I'd missed. There was writing on the inside, very small, almost impossible to see. I held it closer to the light. It said, "Eleanor Vance." Sarah went silent. "The first patient." I nodded. 1957. We both looked at the old file we'd found earlier. Then Sarah suddenly walked toward the shelves. "Wait, what?" "I think I know where her original file is." She pulled out another drawer. It was marked, "Psychiatric Observation, 1957. Inside were several handwritten reports. Sarah searched through them until she found one with Eleanor's name. She opened it. The first few pages described Eleanor's condition. She had suffered from severe fever and confusion after being admitted. Doctors initially believed she was delirious. Then, 3 nights into her stay, she started complaining about a woman. According to the report, Eleanor told the nurses, "She stands behind the bed when the lights go out." Another note said, "Patient insists the woman is not human." Then came the strangest part. Eleanor began describing things she couldn't possibly have known. She knew the names of patients who had died years earlier. She described rooms that hadn't been built yet. And she repeatedly said the same thing. "She doesn't want to leave." I looked at Sarah. "Who?" Sarah turned the page. There was a handwritten answer. "The woman in the room." I felt a chill. We continued reading. On the night Eleanor disappeared, a nurse entered room 317 at 2:14 a.m. Eleanor was sitting on the bed. The nurse asked if she needed anything. Eleanor reportedly smiled and said, "She's going to use my voice tonight." 3 minutes later, the nurse heard her own name being called from the hallway. She stepped outside. When she returned, Eleanor was gone. The door had remained locked. No window was open. Nothing had been disturbed. But there was one thing left behind. A hospital wristband. Exactly like the one I'd found. Sarah closed the file. "That's where it started." I shook my head. "No." She looked at me. "That's where they first noticed it." I pointed at the date. "Look at the year. 1957. Room 317 existed before Eleanor." Sarah frowned. "How do you know?" "The newspaper said the room was already being used." I searched through the old construction documents. After several minutes, I found a blueprint. The original hospital had been built in 1954. The 3rd floor had been designed differently. There was no room 317. There wasn't even a corridor where it appeared in later plans. I looked at Sarah. "Then where did the room come from?" She didn't answer. We kept searching. Finally, Sarah found another document. It wasn't a hospital record. It was a construction report. The date was 1956, 1 year before Eleanor disappeared. The report mentioned an unexpected structural space discovered behind the eastern wall of the 3rd floor. The workers had found an old room, but nobody knew who had built it. The room had no connection to the rest of the building. No plumbing, No electrical wiring. No windows. Just one door. The workers had tried to remove it. According to the report, they couldn't. One worker reportedly became sick after spending several hours inside. Another refused to return. Then, 3 days later, one of them disappeared. I read the final line. Work on the room was discontinued. Door sealed. Sarah whispered. They didn't build room 317. I looked at her. They found it. We were still reading when my phone vibrated. A notification appeared. Security alert, camera 3E. I opened it. The third-floor corridor appeared. Empty. Then the camera shifted. Room 317 was visible. The door was closed. I stared at the screen. Sarah moved beside me. What's that? I zoomed in. There was someone standing behind the small glass window of room 317. A woman. Emily. She was looking directly at the camera. I felt my heart sink. She raised one hand, then slowly wrote something on the glass. I couldn't see it clearly. I increased the brightness. 3 words appeared. Don't trust me. Sarah stepped backward. What? I stared at the screen. Emily wiped the glass. Then she wrote again. This time, only 2 words. It's me. I didn't understand. Sarah looked confused too. Which one is she saying? I shook my head. I don't know. Then the woman inside room 317 stepped away from the glass. Someone appeared behind her. The woman in white. She placed both hands on Emily's shoulders. Emily's face changed. She looked directly into the camera. And this time, she wasn't smiling. She was terrified. She mouthed something. Couldn't hear her, but I could read her lips. Run. The camera went black. My phone suddenly vibrated again. A new notification appeared. Camera 3E disconnected. Then another. Camera 2F disconnected. Then another. Camera 1A disconnected. One after another. Every security camera in the hospital began shutting down. Sarah looked at me. What is happening? I didn't answer, because the radio on the table had started transmitting. Static filled the room. Then a woman's voice came through. Not Emily. Not my mother. Not Sarah. A voice I'd never heard before. Sounded old. Tired. Almost human. Daniel Carter. I froze. The voice continued. You have been looking for the first patient. I looked at Sarah. She was staring at the radio. Then the voice said, but Eleanor Vance was never the first. Silence. Then, she was the first one who survived. The transmission ended. Sarah slowly looked at me. What does that mean? Before I could answer, something slammed against the archive door. Bang. Then again. Bang. The entire door shook. We stepped backward. A third impact hit. Bang. And from the other side, Emily screamed, Daniel, don't open the door. Sarah grabbed my arm. But I was already looking at the handle, because something else was happening. The handle was turning. From the inside, the door handle stopped turning. For a few seconds, everything was silent. Then I heard Emily again. This time, her voice came from directly outside the door. Daniel, please. Sarah pressed her back against the wall. Don't answer. I nodded. The handle moved again. Slowly. Click, click, click. Then it stopped. I looked at the clock. 1:58 a.m. We still had 19 minutes until 2:17. At least that's what I thought. Then the clock flickered. 1:58. 1:58. 1:58. The second hand stopped moving. Sarah looked at her phone. Her face changed. Mine stopped too. I checked mine. The screen showed 1:58 a.m. No matter what I did, it wouldn't change. The radio suddenly crackled. A voice whispered, Time doesn't move in here. I looked toward the door. Who are you? Silence. Then the voice answered, You already know. The door slowly opened by itself. Sarah grabbed my hand. We stepped backward. Nobody stood outside. The hallway was empty, but there was something on the floor. A trail of wet footprints. They started directly in front of the door and continued down the corridor. Sarah whispered, Don't follow them. I stared at the footprints. They were small, bare feet, like someone had just walked out of a hospital room. Then I noticed something else. The footprints were moving. One appeared, then another, as if an invisible person was walking away from us. I looked at Sarah. She shook her head. "Stay here," but I followed. The footprints led us through the basement corridor. They turned left, then right, then stopped in front of an old steel door. Sarah stared at it. "I've never seen this." Neither had I. There was no handle, only a small glass window. Behind it was darkness. Then something moved. A woman stepped into view. Eleanor. At least, that's what I thought. She looked exactly like the photograph from 1957. Young, pale, terrified. She placed her hand against the glass. I stepped closer. "Eleanor." She nodded. Sarah grabbed my shoulder. "Don't touch the door." Eleanor looked behind her. Her eyes widened. Then she began writing something on the glass with her finger. For words. "She is not Emily." I felt my chest tighten. Sarah whispered, "Who isn't Emily?" Eleanor pointed behind us. I turned. Emily was standing at the end of the corridor. She was crying. "Daniel!" I stared at her. Eleanor began pounding on the glass. Bang, bang, bang. Emily slowly walked toward us. "Daniel, please." I looked at Eleanor, then Emily. I didn't know which one to trust. Emily stopped several feet away. "Daniel!" She wiped the tears from her face. "I've been trying to protect you." Eleanor shook her head violently. Emily looked at her. Then her expression changed. The sadness disappeared. Her face became completely blank. "You should have stayed quiet." Eleanor stepped away from the glass. Emily smiled. Not the smile I remembered. It was too wide, too still. Sarah whispered, "That's not Emily." Emily looked directly at her. Then she laughed. The sound echoed through the hallway, but it wasn't one voice. It sounded like dozens of people laughing together. I backed away. "Who are you?" Emily tilted her head. Then she answered in my wife's voice. "You really don't remember?" I shook my head. She took another step. "You opened the door 3 years ago." My heart stopped. "What door?" She smiled. "Room 317. Sarah looked at me. "Daniel." I remembered something. Not clearly, just fragments. A hospital hallway. Emily crying. A door. A voice telling me to come inside. And my own hand, reaching for the handle. I grabbed my head. "I don't remember." Emily whispered, "You weren't supposed to." Then the lights went out. When they came back, Emily was gone. Eleanor was gone. Sarah and I were standing alone. Except for one thing. The steel door was now open. Behind it was a small room. And inside, there was a hospital bed. On the bed was a patient. The sheet covered the entire body. Sarah didn't move. I slowly stepped inside. There was a chart hanging from the end of the bed. I pulled it down. The name was faded, but I could still read it. Patient. Daniel Carter. I dropped the chart. "No!" Sarah looked at the bed. "Don't touch the sheet." But I already had my hand on it. I pulled it down. There was a man lying underneath. His face was turned toward the wall. I couldn't see him clearly. Then he slowly turned his head. I stopped breathing. It was me. Older. Paler. Eyes closed. A hospital tube connected to his arm. A monitor beside the bed showed a flat line. Beep. Nothing. Beep. Nothing. Then the man's eyes opened. He looked directly at me and whispered, "You're too late." I stepped backward. "What happened to me?" He smiled weakly. "You never left." I looked at Sarah. She was crying. The older version of me continued, "You're still in room 317. I shook my head. "No." He looked toward the doorway, then whispered, "Look behind you." I didn't want to, but I did. Sarah was gone. The corridor was gone. The steel door was gone. I was standing inside room 317, alone. The older me was still lying on the bed. And behind me, someone was breathing. A woman's voice whispered beside my ear, "Daniel, now you remember." I didn't turn around. Couldn't. Every part of me was telling me not to look. The breathing behind me was slow and steady, close enough that I could feel it against the back of my neck. Then the woman whispered, "Daniel." I closed my eyes, and suddenly, I remembered, not everything, just pieces. 3 years earlier, October 14th, Emily had been sick. She'd been admitted to St. Vincent after collapsing at home. The doctors couldn't explain why she kept losing consciousness. Then, sometime after midnight, she woke up screaming. She told me there was a woman in the room. I didn't believe her. I thought she was confused. I told her it was the medication. She grabbed my hand. "Daniel, please believe me." I didn't. Then the lights went out. When they came back, Emily was standing beside the door. She was staring at something behind me. I turned around. Nothing. Then she whispered, "She's using your voice." I laughed nervously. "Emily, you're exhausted." She shook her head. "Don't listen if she calls you." Then someone called my name. From behind the wall. My voice. I remember walking toward the door. Emily tried to stop me. I remember her screaming. I remember opening it. Then, nothing. I opened my eyes. I was back inside room 317. The older version of me was still lying on the bed. The woman was standing behind me. I finally turned around. It was Emily, but not the Emily I remembered. Her skin was pale. Her eyes were completely black. Her hair hung over her shoulders, and she was smiling. "You finally remember." I stepped backward. "You aren't Emily." Her smile widened. "No." She took one step toward me. "But she is." I looked toward the bed. The older version of me was staring at the ceiling. Then he whispered, "She's been here the entire time." I looked back at the woman. "What do you want?" She didn't answer. Instead, she pointed toward the corner. I followed her finger. Emily was standing there. The real Emily. Or at least, someone who looked like her. She was crying. "Daniel." I couldn't move. She whispered, "Don't believe her." The woman beside me laughed. Emily looked at me. "I tried to get you out 3 years ago." She pointed toward the bed. "But you opened the door." I remembered. My hand. The handle. Emily screaming. Then darkness. "Where am I?" Emily answered, "You're in the room." "What room?" She looked around. "The room that was here before the hospital." I didn't understand. Then the older version of me spoke. "It's not a hospital room." He looked at me. "It's a trap." The woman screamed. The lights exploded. The entire room shook. Emily ran toward me. "Daniel!" She grabbed my hand. For the first time, her hand felt warm. Real. She pulled me toward the door. "Run!" We stepped into the hallway. Sarah was standing there. Alive. She looked at me. "Daniel!" I ran toward her. But Emily suddenly stopped. Her face changed. She stared at Sarah. Then whispered, "That's not Sarah." Sarah smiled. Too widely. Her eyes turned completely black. I froze. The thing wearing Sarah's face laughed. Then Emily grabbed me. "Don't look at them." We ran. Behind us, the hallway began filling with people. Nurses, doctors, patients, all wearing familiar faces, all calling my name. Some were people I'd known. Some were people I'd never met. And all of them were walking toward us. Emily pulled me through another door. We entered a stairwell. "Where are we going?" "Outside." "Can we get out?" She looked at me. "If you can reach 217 without opening the door." "What happens at 217? She stopped. "That's when it becomes real." We climbed the stairs. 1 floor, 2, 3. The hospital slowly became brighter. The sounds of the normal world returned. Then we reached the 3rd floor. The corridor looked familiar. Rooms 316 and 318 were there. No room 317. Emily looked at the clock. 2:16 a.m. "We have 1 minute." I could hear footsteps behind us. Emily squeezed my hand. "Whatever happens, don't let me go." The lights flickered. 2:17 a.m. The corridor disappeared. For 1 second, I was standing in room 317 again. The woman was directly in front of me. She reached for my hand. I remembered what Emily had said. "Don't let her out." Pulled away. The woman screamed. The entire hospital shook. Then the room collapsed into darkness. I woke up on the floor of the security office. Morning sunlight was coming through the windows. Sarah was sitting beside me. She looked exhausted. "Daniel." I sat up. "What happened?" She stared at me. "You tell me." I looked around. The security monitors were working normally. No room 317. No strange hallway. Nothing. I checked the clock. 6:12 a.m. I remembered everything. But there was one thing I couldn't explain. "Emily." I looked at Sarah. "Where's my wife?" Sarah's expression changed. "Daniel." "What?" She looked toward the security desk. There was a photograph sitting beside my radio. I picked it up. It was an old photograph. Emily, standing beside me, smiling, but she wasn't alone. Behind us was St. Vincent Memorial Hospital. And behind the hospital was a third-floor window, room 317. I turned the photograph over. There was handwriting on the back. I recognized it immediately. Emily's handwriting. It said, "I told you I'd come back for you." Underneath was another sentence. "But I never said I came back alone." I slowly looked toward the third-floor windows. One of them was open. A woman in a white dress was standing behind the glass, watching me. Then my radio crackled. A familiar voice whispered, "Daniel." I didn't answer. The voice continued, "Thank you for opening the door." The radio went silent. And to this day, I still don't know what happened that night. I don't know if Emily really came back for me. I don't know who the woman in the white dress was. And I don't know why room 317 still appears on the hospital cameras sometimes, even though the room doesn't exist. But there's one thing I know for certain. Every October 14th, at exactly 2:17 a.m., someone calls the security office. And every time, the voice on the radio sounds exactly like someone I love. Sometimes it's Emily. Sometimes it's my mother. Sometimes it's my father. And once, it was my own voice. But the worst part isn't hearing them. The worst part is knowing that one day, I might answer. I thought the story was over. For almost 3 weeks, nothing happened. No strange voices. No missing footage. No room 317. The hospital went back to being exactly what it had always been. At least during the day. I even started convincing myself that what happened that night had been some kind of breakdown caused by exhaustion. Sarah never talked about it. Neither did I. We both agreed that sometimes there are things you survive by refusing to understand them. Then, on November 6th, I was working another night shift. It was around 1:40 a.m. The hospital was quiet. I was sitting alone in the security office watching the cameras. Everything was normal, until camera 3E flickered. I looked up. The third-floor corridor appeared. Rooms 316 and 318 were visible. Between them, there was a door. I stopped breathing. 317. I leaned toward the monitor. The door was closed. I immediately reached for the radio. "Sarah?" No response. I tried again. "Sarah, are you on 3? Static. Then I heard her voice. "I'm here." I frowned. "Where?" A pause. Then, room 317. My blood went cold. "Sarah, get out of there." Nothing. "Sarah." Her voice came back, but something was wrong. She sounded like she was whispering. "Daniel." "What?" "I found something." "What did you find?" Silence. Then she said, "Emily." The camera suddenly went black. I stood up. I knew I shouldn't go. Every instinct told me to stay inside the security office. But Sarah was my friend. If she was really on the third floor, I couldn't leave her there. I grabbed my flashlight and ran toward the elevator. The third floor was empty. Completely empty. I walked toward the end of the corridor. There was no room 317. Just 316. Then 318. I checked the camera on my phone. Nothing. I was about to turn around when I heard a sound. A faint tapping. Coming from inside the wall between 316 and 318. tap, pause, tap, pause, then 3 taps, tap, tap, tap. I placed my hand against the wall. Something tapped back. I pulled my hand away. The tapping stopped. Then a voice whispered from inside the wall. Daniel, Emily. I stepped backward. Emily? The wall became completely silent. Then someone whispered, "Don't let Sarah open the door." My heart started pounding. Where is she? No answer. I looked at the wall again. There was something strange about it. A thin line had appeared between the wallpaper panels. A doorway. I touched it. The panel moved. Behind it was darkness, and a narrow passage. I shouldn't have gone inside, but I did. The passage was barely wide enough for one person. The walls were covered with old photographs. Hundreds of them. Patients, doctors, nurses, families, people from different decades. Every photograph had the same thing in common. Room 317 was somewhere in the background. I walked deeper. Then I saw Emily. She was standing at the end of the passage. She looked exactly as she had when she was alive. Daniel. I stopped. Are you really Emily? She smiled sadly. I don't know anymore. What does that mean? She looked at the photographs. Every time someone enters that room, something is left behind. What? A memory. She looked at me. That's why you couldn't remember what happened 3 years ago. I felt a chill. What did I leave behind? Emily didn't answer. Instead, she pointed behind me. I turned. The passage was gone. I was standing in room 317. Sarah was sitting on the hospital bed. Her back was toward me. Sarah? She slowly turned. Her face looked normal, but her eyes were filled with tears. Daniel! I walked toward her. What happened? She pointed toward the corner. Someone was standing there. A woman in a white dress. The same woman. But this time, I could see her face. It was Emily. I froze. Sarah whispered, "Which one is your wife?" I looked at the woman in the corner, then at Sarah, then at the woman sitting beside me. Both were Emily. Both were staring at me. Both smiled. Then they spoke at exactly the same time. Choose. The lights went out, and in the darkness, one of them whispered, "If you choose wrong, she leaves with you." I heard footsteps approaching, slowly, closer, closer. Then a hand touched my shoulder. I turned around and heard my own voice whisper, "Daniel, this time don't choose." I didn't move. 2 women were standing in front of me. Both looked like Emily. Both had the same face, same hair, same scar beneath the left eye, same silver necklace around their necks. But only one of them could be my wife. At least, that's what I wanted to believe. The room was completely dark. I could hear someone breathing behind me. My own voice. "This time, don't choose." I slowly turned around. Nobody was there. When I looked back at the bed, both women were gone. The room was empty, except for a hospital monitor beside the bed. It suddenly turned on. Beep. A green line appeared. Beep. Then another. The monitor began displaying a name. Patient. Emily Carter. I stepped closer. Underneath the name was a second line. Status, transferred. I didn't understand. Then the door opened. Sarah walked inside. Daniel. I stared at her. Sarah. She looked confused. What are you doing here? I pointed toward the monitor. Where were you? She frowned. I've been looking for you. For how long? About 20 minutes. I looked at the clock. 2:03 a.m. 20 minutes? That couldn't be right. I've been inside the room for what felt like hours. Sarah noticed my expression. What happened? I didn't answer. Instead, I asked, "Are you really Sarah?" She stared at me. Then she smiled. Of course I am. I stepped backward. How do I know? Her smile disappeared. You don't. She walked toward me. You don't know anything anymore, Daniel. I felt the same cold feeling I'd experienced before. What do you want? She stopped. I want you to remember. Remember what? She pointed toward the bed. Who was lying there 3 years ago? I looked at the bed. Nothing. Then the lights flickered. For a moment, I saw Emily lying there. Her eyes were closed. Her hands were folded over her chest. She looked dead. Then the image disappeared. I turned toward Sarah. "You saw that too?" She nodded. "Yes." "Then tell me what happened." Sarah took a deep breath. 3 years ago, Emily wasn't admitted because she was sick. I stared at her. "What?" "She came here because she was looking for someone." "Who?" Sarah looked toward the corner. "The first patient. Eleanor." She nodded. Emily had been researching room 317 for months. I felt my chest tighten. "Why?" "Because her mother had worked here." "I didn't know that." "Emily had never told me." Sarah continued. "Her mother was a nurse at St. Vincent." "When?" 1957. I stared at her. "That's impossible." Sarah shook her head. "Emily's mother wasn't born in 1957. She paused. "But her grandmother was." I didn't understand. "Her grandmother?" Sarah nodded. "Her grandmother was Eleanor Vance." The room seemed to tilt. Eleanor Vance, the first patient, the woman who disappeared in 1957, the woman whose photograph looked exactly like Emily. I whispered, "Emily was related to her." "Yes." Sarah looked at me. "And she came here because she wanted to find out what happened to her." I remembered the old photograph. Emily, Eleanor, the same face, the same eyes, the same scar. It finally made sense. Or at least, I thought it did. Then Sarah said, "But she wasn't Eleanor's only descendant." I looked at her. "Who else?" Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "You." I laughed nervously. "No." She shook her head. "Your family is connected to this hospital too." I couldn't speak. "My grandfather?" She nodded. "He was one of the workers who discovered the room." I remembered the old construction report. One worker had disappeared. I whispered, "That's why it chose me." Sarah nodded. "It wasn't random." The monitor beside us suddenly changed. "Patient. Daniel Carter." My name appeared on the screen. Then another line. "Family connection confirmed." Sarah stepped backward. "Daniel." The monitor began beeping faster. Beep, beep, beep. Then the room filled with voices. Dozens of voices, all saying my name. The lights flickered. The walls began changing. The modern hospital disappeared. The room became old. Yellow walls, rusty equipment, a wooden hospital bed, and standing beside it, Eleanor. She looked exactly like the photograph. She stared at me. Then she pointed toward the door. Behind her stood Emily, the real Emily. I knew it immediately, not because of her face, because of the way she looked at me, the way she always had, like she was trying to protect me. She whispered, "Daniel." I stepped toward her. "Emily." She shook her head. "Don't come closer." "Why?" "Because if you touch me." She looked at Eleanor. "She can leave." I stopped. Eleanor smiled. Emily continued, "That's what happened 3 years ago." I felt tears forming in my eyes. "What happened?" Emily looked at me. "You opened the door." She pointed toward Eleanor. "And she used me to get out." I looked at Eleanor. She wasn't smiling anymore. Emily whispered, "I've been keeping her here ever since." I finally understood. Emily hadn't come back to haunt me. She had been trapped. She had been holding Eleanor inside room 317. And somehow, my presence had weakened whatever was keeping the room sealed. Emily looked at me. "Daniel, there's only one way to stop her." "What?" She whispered, "You have to take my place." I stared at her. "No. Listen to me. No. You can't let her leave." Eleanor suddenly screamed. The entire room shook. Emily reached toward me. "Daniel." I took her hand. The moment our fingers touched, every light in the hospital exploded. The voices stopped. The room went completely silent. And somewhere far away, I heard a door slam. Then Emily whispered, "I'm sorry." Her hand disappeared from mine. I looked down. I was standing alone. Emily was gone. Eleanor was gone. Sarah was gone. Room 317 was gone. I was standing in the normal third-floor corridor. Rooms 316 and 318 were beside me. There was no door between them. No blood. No hospital bed. No strange woman. Nothing. I checked my phone. 6:03 a.m. The sun was rising outside. For the first time in 3 years, I felt completely calm. Then my phone vibrated. A message appeared. From Emily. There was no number. Just her name. Emily Carter. The message contained only 5 words. "Thank you for staying with me." I stared at the screen. Then another message appeared. "Now don't open the door." I looked toward the end of the corridor. There was a door there, one I had never seen before, and on it was a familiar number. 317. I didn't touch the door. Couldn't. After everything I'd seen that night, every instinct in my body told me to stay as far away from it as possible. But I couldn't stop looking at the number. 317. The same number that had followed me for 3 years. The same room that supposedly didn't exist. I took one step backward. The door remained completely still. Then my phone vibrated again. Another message from Emily. "Daniel, walk away." I stared at the screen. My fingers were shaking. I typed, "Where are you?" The message showed as sent. No reply. I typed again. "Emily, please." Nothing. Then the screen changed. A new message appeared. "I'm not the one texting you." My heart stopped. I looked at the door. The number 317 was slowly changing. The metal letters began to distort. For a moment, the number disappeared. Then 3 different numbers appeared. 316, 318, then 317. I stepped back. The door handle moved. Just slightly. I heard a whisper from the other side. Emily's voice. "Daniel." I closed my eyes. "You're not Emily." Silence. Then the voice laughed. Not loudly, just a quiet little laugh. Exactly the way Emily used to laugh when she knew I was joking. "You finally learned." The lights above me flickered. I turned and started walking away. One step, then another. I didn't run. I didn't look back. But I could hear footsteps behind me. Bare feet against the hospital floor. Step, pause, step, pause. I kept walking. Then I heard, "Daniel." I didn't answer. "Please." I kept walking. "You promised." I stopped. My eyes filled with tears. That was something only Emily knew. Promise we'd made years ago. On the night we got married. I slowly turned around. The hallway was empty. The door marked 317 was still there. But now, someone was standing in front of it. Emily. She looked exactly like herself. Tears were running down her face. "Daniel." I whispered, "Are you real?" She nodded. "Yes." "How do I know?" She smiled sadly. "You don't." I stared at her. She walked closer. "I need you to understand something." "What?" "I'm not trapped inside room 317. I frowned. "Then where are you?" She pointed toward me. "I'm trapped inside you." Couldn't breathe. "What does that mean?" She looked at the floor. "Every time you remember me, she gets closer." I shook my head. "No, it's true." She stepped closer. "That's why I kept trying to make you forget." I remembered the missing memories, the strange gaps, the 3 years I couldn't remember. Emily had been trying to protect me, not from room 317, from herself, or rather, from whatever was using her memory. She whispered, "She can't leave unless someone remembers her." "Who?" Emily looked toward the door. "Eleanor." The door behind her slowly opened, just a few inches. Emily's face turned pale. "She's awake." I stepped toward Emily. "What do we do?" She looked at me. "You have to forget me." I stared at her. "No, Daniel. No. If you remember me, she'll follow you." "I don't care." "You have to." The door opened another inch. Darkness appeared behind it. Then a woman's hand slowly came through. Pale fingers. Too long. Emily grabbed my arm. "Run." We turned. The corridor lights went out one by one behind us. Click. Dark. Click. Dark. Click. Dark. We ran. The hospital seemed endless. Hallways stretched longer than they should. Doors appeared where there hadn't been doors. Patients stood silently inside rooms, watching us pass. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Until we reached the elevator. Emily pressed the button. Nothing. She pressed again. Nothing. The display showed B. I looked at her. Basement. She nodded. The room is underneath the hospital. The elevator doors opened. We stepped inside. The doors closed. The display changed. 3, 2, 1. Then, B. The elevator began descending. Emily grabbed my hand. Whatever happens, don't look at the mirror. I looked at the elevator wall. There was a large mirror. I immediately looked away, but it was too late. I had already seen the reflection. Emily was standing beside me. I was standing beside Emily, but behind us, there was a third person, a woman in a white dress. She was smiling. I closed my eyes. Daniel. Emily's voice was shaking. What? Don't turn around. The elevator stopped. The doors opened. Emily squeezed my hand. Whatever you hear, she whispered, don't let go. We stepped into the darkness. The elevator doors closed behind us. And somewhere in the basement, a woman began singing. It was an old song, a song I'd heard once before, in a recording from 1957. The song Eleanor had been humming right before she disappeared. Emily looked at me. Tears filled her eyes. She remembers you now. Then the singing stopped. A voice came from the darkness. My voice. Daniel, welcome back.